Before anyone asks, the game in the background is Monster Hunter World. Now, picture the following. You're a little baby boy, a little goo goo gaga diaper-eating baby boy, and you go on the iPad that your parents gave you to avoid actually raising you. You just downloaded a game called Arknights because at a young age you already recognized that Gummy is the best girl in all of fiction. Then you wonder the following. Goo goo bl gaga gee, which translates from baby speak to I wonder what units are the strongest. I will go check a tier list. And that's that. You f***ed up already. Your life is ruined and your parents will never be proud of you. This is because in a game like Arknights, a tier list is very much useless. First, let's define what the idea behind the concept of a tier list is. Tier lists rank vertically the operators, with the ones at the top supposedly being stronger. This works on a flat strength spectrum. Imagine a straight line. This is flat strength. What I mean is that inherently a tier list can only tell you S tier good and F tier bad. Maybe they'll have annotations with the tiers, but they can't go in depth. This doesn't mesh with Arknights at all, because in Arknights, instead of having a flat strength line, you have a strength 4-dimensional cube. Take Ak. Do you put Ak in D tier because he's not that useful in normal play and on his own he doesn't really do much? Or do you put this little furry in S tier because he's literally mandatory for many high-risk strats? And he alone allows entire strategies to be possible. What my dumb little gummy poisoned brain is trying to say is that Axe value and strength fluctuate heavily depending on the stage and context. And I'm not talking something like SUPAH, you see, under these conditions, Guard Skadi excels in this stage. That is not an operator with fluctuating strength, that is a Skadi fan coping. And this isn't true for just Ak. Weedy is probably the biggest example, along with almost every debuffer and buffer. A tier list is simply too superficial of a method to be able to account for operators with fluctuating strength. Take Thorns as another example. We can all agree that Thorns is really strong. He's got a BBC that's bigger than your forearm, so one would put him in S tier, because he's strong, very simple to use, and very versatile. But Thorns is very mid in CC. He functions on very few maps, and even then, the risks have to accommodate him, because he needs 3 workdays to charge the skill twice. So, do you put him in C tier because he's mid in the hardest mode, and maybe for you CC is the only metric that matters? Or do you put him in A tier, as a middle ground? What about Cruz? She's fundamentally useless past the early game, but very useful in integrated strategies and stationary security service. Essentially, a tier list is impossible because each operator has to be looked at on a case-by-case basis, depending on the game mode and what stages you're trying to beat. Tier lists are far too simplistic in nature to do any of that. So, now we've established that tier lists can't apply to the scope of the entire game. Some of you may be thinking, Gagagagi, ooh, go! Which translates to, well, then make a tier list for each game mode. But if you paid attention, this is not gonna work either, because, again, of operators like hack and weedy, which, even within the scope of a single game mode, fluctuate massively. For example, in a CC tier list, axe placement would vary a ton depending on what risk you're trying to achieve. In a roguelike tier list, everyone massively fluctuates based on what items you find. Take Pallas. She's kinda mid, but if you find the spinach and the war crime, she becomes a god of death. Okay, so next idea. Then make a tier list for each class. If you limit yourself to, for example, just chain casters, then it's very simple to rank even operators that fluctuate in value. Look at that, you grew up enough to form sentences. At face value, this seems like a great idea. It eliminates the problem with game modes, and it also eliminates the problem about fluctuating power levels, because now you're looking at that class in a vacuum, with all the expectations that come with that class. This is what Gamepress, Cesith, and many others do. This is because the underlying idea of a class tier list is comparing the operators within that class with each other. Let's look at the Splashcaster Gamepress tier list. You will see Dusk in S- tier and Mostima in A+. This is technically true. Compared to other wastes of space in this archetype like Gitano and Purgatory, Dusk and Mostima are, in fact, the better ones. But class tier lists can be very easily misleading. A clueless player will just see Mostima and Dusk in high tiers and think they are strong, without realizing that these tiers are relative to the class, and that Dusk and Mostima are not worth building. Not only that, but Gamepress has an option to filter by tier for some reason, which completely defeats the entire point of a class-based tier list system. Because now you can look at all the S tiers, and you'll have Dusk and Skadigard in the same tier as Kyobe, while the first two are not worth building and Kyobe is actually very good. This is actually really misleading. I have no clue why they put an option to filter by tier. Now, you could argue, just be of normal IQ and you will realize that the tiers are relative. And I will argue that judging from Oyuki's channel view count, a sizable portion of the Arknights players are either new or unskilled. So, if tier lists have so many problems, and they are so unreliable, why are they so popular? It's very simple, and it's something that Kukikaze explains very well. Arknights players don't want to learn. They want to be told what to do. This is literally Yaldabaoth's point in Persona 5, you know, about how people wish to be controlled and freed from the burden of making choices. God, I am still hoping for a Persona 5 collab. Tier lists are also extremely easy to consume. It's one image that you can just look at and immediately understand what it's saying. It's way easier to consume a Cesith video that just says Ling is SSS tier, rather than a Zafang video going super in depth on why Ling is SSS tier. It's easier to consume an image telling you the position of every operator rather than singular reviews for each operator. So they open up a tier list on the mom's iPad and they see Saria put in a tier above Gummy, which is not true, because we all know that Gummy is the best unit in the game, and I will not accept these tier lists spreading the lie that Saria and Nearl are better any longer. This is a declaration of war! So yeah, in short, don't follow tier lists and Persona 5 collab soon.
We'll not only one sky, blue